Welcome to this week's edition of We'd Rather See This, a weekly Canacast on the hottest global cannabis stories. I am Marguerite Arnold, reporting animatedly from Frankfurt, Germany. This week in the U.S., the Biden White House shows its true colors on pot reform by firing staffers who admitted to previous recreational cannabis use. London Mayor Sadiq Khan calls on the British police to end stop-and-search procedures, and in Canada, fewer than 400 people have managed to expunge their records for conviction for possession of cannabis. First up, in the U.S., the Biden administration has shown its true colors less than 3 months into office on the general topic of recreational cannabis reform. Staffers who admitted to past recreational cannabis use on confidential security background checks have been pressured to resign or have been fired. The shockwaves are resounding not only in Washington, but far from the swamp, especially as the position of the administration, at least initially, was to officially ignore the same. Indeed, an initial statement a month ago indicated that past cannabis use would not disqualify candidates from jobs at the White House. According to the Daily Beast, which broke the story, staffers were informed of the decision by phone. The White House subsequently issued a statement that only added to the confusion, namely one that stated that the administration's commitment to maintaining the absolute highest standard for service in government that the president expects from his administration, while acknowledging the reality that state and local marijuana laws have changed significantly across the country in recent years. Keep in mind that recreational use is also now legal in the District of Columbia. It sure does not sound like it, at least at 1600 Penn. Indeed, the entire issue of job discrimination against casual users has just been given a new and unfortunate spin. Unlike Europe, the issue of drug testing for employment is still a big one in the United States, and further one that will not end until full and formal reform actually happens. With recreational advocates now formally on the outs at the White House, that conversation looks even more stalled than ever. It is also hard to understand how the Biden team even thinks it will unite a country with divisive tactics like this in the mix from the get-go. Say it ain't so, Joe. Next up, move over Meghan and Harry. The mayor of London is also having a turn in the sun on the issue of racial equality. Sadiq Khan has called on the Metropolitan Police to end the practice of stop-and-search tactics. Drug possession, including cannabis, is the top reason for such intervention by the police. And just like in the U.S., such policies unfairly affect minorities. While there clearly has been not as much of a Black Lives Matter moment in the UK as there has been in the US, the issue of police reform is a constant in the news of late. From rogue cops murdering women to overzealous responses at recent protests, including but not limited to the pandemic lockdown, British bobbies have been getting a lot of criticism on their tactics, and from multiple sources. When it comes to cannabis possession, of course, the entire topic is now running into the fact that patients are actually getting prescriptions from the NHS, and the entire CBD business is getting regulated. Arresting minorities for minor possession is increasingly a losing proposition, especially in this environment. It is hard to pretend that there is anything fair about a government which is charging small businesses up to £1 million to get certified while arresting certain individuals for minor possession. And finally, in Canada, fewer than 400 people have had their records for minor possession expunged, even though the federal government set up the program to do so 2 years ago. CTV News reports that officials have granted 395 pardons under the program as of March 21st. More than 250 outstanding applications have been rejected for a variety of reasons, including ineligibility to incompleteness. According to Public Safety Canada, the government estimated that as many as 10,000 Canadians would be eligible for this program, which would clear their records of a charge of simple possession. There are several reasons for this, including the fact that the application process itself is very expensive and complicated, and that people might not qualify for the expungement given the nature of their conviction. The idea behind the program is to reduce barriers to major life opportunities, like education programs, housing, and even volunteer jobs. However, it is very clear that officials underestimated the effort that clearing records would take. There is still clearly a long way to go on reform, no matter where the conversation is occurring. That is all for this week's edition of We'd Rather See This. I am Marguerite Arnold. See you next week on this pro-cannabis channel.